Okay, there we are. Oh! Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A nice smear across thy face. How we doing? How we doing, guys? Alright. So, I am only in the mood and of the mind for the work. My feelings, the fiasco will not be discussed. We're gonna have fun doing this thing, all in all, rocking and rolling. But because I have brought the heat and I care about my chat room, today slow mode is activated, and for the time being, until resolve, we will keep with the slow mode in case the flurry of trolls, but it's also a subscriber-only participation. That shouldn't be a problem, because I typically only really hear anything worth anything from people that I see all the time, and so I'm assuming that they're already subbed. I mean, half the time I'm having conversations with wrenches. And I apologize if you are an awesome person and you've only been here for like 3 weeks or something like that. I'm really fucking sorry. But shit's hot. 1 month, I think, is good because it is the new moon, or at least the day after the new moon. It's been a lunar cycle. It's been a lunar cycle since the eclipse. It's been a lunar cycle since my eclipse ritual. I am happier with the results in the wake of it all. Much happier with the results. For myself, I'm still devastated about the losses, but those losses are my decision for my sense of safety and security and all those good things. So let's worry about that the next time I feel like being unhinged. We've got work with Master Heidegger. Shall we pick up on 68? The temporality of disclosedness in general. Resoluteness, which we have characterized with regard to its temporal meaning, represents an authentic disclosedness of Dasein, a disclosedness which constitutes an entity of such a kind that in existing it can be its very there. Care has been characterized with regard to its temporal meaning, but only in its basic features. It exhibits its concrete temporal constitution, means to give a temporal interpretation of the items of its structure, taking them each singly understanding state of mind, falling, and discourse. Excuse me. Falling and discourse. Yes. Every understanding has its mood. Every state of mind is one of which one understands. The understanding which one has in such a state of mind has the character of falling. Interesting. I can understand that. The understanding which has its mood attuned in falling articulates itself with relation to its intelligibility in discourse. The current temporal constitution of these phenomena leads back in each case to that one kind of temporality which serves as such to guarantee the possibility that understanding, state of mind, falling, and discourse are united in their structure. And then we have annotation before we hit section A. You know what? I feel like reading it anyway because it looks like fun. Die Zwischenzeitliche Konstitution der genannten Phänomen wird je auf die Einseitigkeit zurück, als welch sei die Möglichkeit von verstehen Befindlichkeit verfallen und Red verbirgt. The older editions omit the pronoun sie. You see? Somebody got his pronouns wrong. Anyway, the temporality of understanding. With the term understanding, we have in mind a fundamental existential, which is neither a definite species of cognition distinguished, let us say, from explaining and conceiving, nor any cognition at all, in the sense of grasping something thematically. Understanding that constitutes rather the being of the there, in such a way that on the basis of such understanding, a Dasein can, in existing, develop the different possibilities of sight, of looking around, Sekunsehen, and of just looking. In all explanation, one uncovers understandingly that which one cannot understand, and all explanation is thus rooted in Dasein's primary understanding. If the term understanding is taken in a way which is primordially existential, it means to be projecting towards a potentiality for being for the sake of which any Dasein exists. I'm not going to read that one. So, in understanding, one's own potentiality for being is disclosed in such a way that one's Dasein always knows understandingly what it is capable of. What my world is capable of. What my state of existence, like I've said. The universe will never throw anything at you that you can't handle. It knows this, however, not by having discovered some fact, but by maintaining itself in an existential possibility. The kind of ignorance which corresponds to this does not consist in an absence of cessation of understanding, but must be regarded as a deficient mode of the projectedness of one's potentiality for being. Existence can be questionable, if it is to be possible for someone to be in question. Das Infrestehen. A disclosedness is needed when one understands oneself projectively in an existential possibility. The future underlies this understanding, and it does so as a coming towards oneself out of that current possibility as which one's Dasein exists. The future makes ontologically possible an entity which is in such a way that it exists understandingly in its potentiality for being. Projection is basically futural. It does not primarily grasp the projected possibility thematically just by having it in view, but it throws itself into it as a possibility. Yeah, I threw myself into a dream that required all sorts of people within that Dasein, and people that I thought had a certain shared values, goals, possibilities, and if one could fix a problem to give it a fair hearing. Right? C'est la vie. In each case, Dasein is understandingly in the way that it can be. Alright, I don't need to read that one. Resoluteness has turned out to be a kind of existing, which is primordial and authentic. Oh, you don't say. So if I am resolute, it is so authentic that it is something within the source of my core. Oh boy, hold on a second. Oh, we got trouble. We got trouble. My visitor is going to do the most atypical thing that these visitors do. Come here. Come here. There, you're stepping on Anpo. God, oh, the war of the gods continues. Come here. All right, say hi, you big fluffy monster. All right. This is Lotus, my buddy Sean's cat. All right. You want to hang here? You're fairly chill. Come on, you can hang. All right, where are we at? Let's see. Resoluteness has turned out to be a kind of existing which is primordial and authentic. Proximally and for the most part, to be sure, Dasein remains irresolute. That it is to say, it remains closed off in its own most potentiality for being, to which it brings itself only when it has been individualized. So that thus makes it correspond to the individuation process. That's cool. See, look at that. We found a direct utility with young right here in that sentence. That's awesome. All right. This implies that temporality does not temporalize itself constantly out of the authentic future. This inconsistency, however, does not mean that temporality sometimes lacks a future, but rather that the temporalizing of the future takes various forms. To designate the authentic future terminologically, we have reserved the expression anticipation. This indicates that Dasein, existing, authentically lets itself come towards itself as its own most potentiality for being, that the future itself must first win itself, not from a present, but from the inauthentic future. Interesting. If we are to provide a formally undifferentiated term for the future, we may use the one with which we have designated the first structural item of care, the ahead of itself. And I'm an Aries. I know what it's like to get ahead of myself. Factically, Dasein is constantly ahead of itself. Oh, so I'm like Dasein? I am like, yeah, that's Aries. We are raw existing because we are the little, we're immature. We're fucking immature. But that's because there's a part of us that sticks with that early childhood development phase where you're exploring your personality. For an Aries, that can be I'm still building myself, right? I'm 44 years old and I'm still building myself because of the refinement to my identity that I have built by getting to know my soul better and getting to realize I want to have more of these things in my life and less of these things in my life, and it changed my epigenetics and it has activated my soul code genetics, and now here I am living incarnate as whatever the hell you don't want to believe that I am. Okay. Factically, Dasein is constantly ahead of itself, but inconstantly anticipatory with regard to its existential possibility. How is the inauthentic future to be contrasted with this? Just as the authentic future is revealed in resoluteness, the inauthentic future as an ecstatical mode, just want to make sure I read that right, can reveal itself only if we go back ontologically from the inauthentic understanding of everyday concern to its existential temporal meaning. As care, Dasein is essentially ahead of itself. Proximately and for the most part, concernful, being in the world understands itself in terms of that with which it is concerned. Inauthentic understanding, hold on, let's get this word, especially because I want to see what this idea of inauthentic understanding is, because that might be very, very helpful. Okay, das eigentlich Verstehen. Italics only in the later editions. Okay, that's, I forget why the italics matter. But anyway, projects itself upon that with which one can concern oneself, or upon that which is feasible, urgent, or indispensable in our everyday business. Right there. Right there. Not bringing up the situation other than to mention that right there is why I care about Ayn Randian style objectivism and why people deserve a fair hearing. Simple. But that with which we concern ourselves is as it is for the sake of that potentiality for being which cares. This potentiality lets Dasein come towards itself in its concernful being alongside that with which it is concerned. Dasein does not come towards itself primarily in its own most non-relational potentiality for being, but it awaits this concernfully in terms of that which yields or denies that object of its concern. That sounds a whole lot like what James True calls witness. That sounds a whole lot like witness to me. That sounds pretty witnessy to me. Pretty smart, I'd say. I'd say James True is pretty fucking smart. Alright. Sondern es ist besorgen seiner gewärtig aus dem, was das besorgt ergibt oder versagt. It is not clear whether das besorgt or was is the subject of its clause. Dasein comes towards itself from that with which it concerns itself. The inauthentic future has the character of awaiting. Das was Tiesens. While the verb await has many advantages as an approximation to Gerwartigen, it is a bit too colorless and fails to bring out the important idea of being prepared to reckon with that which one awaits. Right, which gets into the anticipation, right? And it is the aspect because, like, if you look at, for instance, my state of being, here I am, I'm at home, I'm at rest. With temporality, we have this idea of the sense of the transitioning of the day and how a day is defining itself and the modality of that day. And I'm in a modality where nothing in the outside world compels my time. Therefore, I am in a mastery place of time because I'm here in my home, I'm here in my workstation, I am in my Othala, as the runes would put it. Right? This is my sanctuary where I grow, where I am rooted. Right? In this place, I can let my usual guard down to focus my energy on my other projects because I don't have to be concerned with the world because while I'm in here, the world is not concerned with me. That makes perfect sense. And part of the various things you must cultivate for yourself as a magus, because you need those private places for your rituals. This is good stuff. Dasein comes towards itself from that which it concerns itself. The inauthentic future has the character of awaiting. One's concernful understanding of oneself as they-self in terms of what one does has its possibility based upon this ecstatical mode of the future, and only because the factical Dasein is thus awaiting its potentiality for being and is awaiting this potentiality in terms of that with which it concerns itself. Can it expect anything and wait for it? Erwarten und warten auf. In each case, some sort of awaiting must have disclosed the horizon and the range from which something can be expected. Expecting is founded upon awaiting, and it is a mode of that future which temporalizes itself authentically as anticipation. Hence, there lies in anticipation a more primordial being towards death than in the concernful expecting of it. Right. My behavior in my authentic resolve was to have my feelings, knowing that the words I needed to put to my feelings would bring a tremendous amount of heat upon me, to bring into the possibility, a greater possibility of the being towards death of my Dasein. And that's when you have to buck up and be brave and be a man. Understanding as existing in the potentiality for being, however it may have been projected, is primarily futural, but it would not temporalize itself. it is itself, if it were not temporal. That is determined with each primordiality by having been and by the present. The way in which the latter ecstasis helps constitute inauthentic understanding has already been made plain in a rough and ready fashion. Everyday concern understands itself in terms of that potentiality for being, which confronts it as coming from its possible success or failure with regard to whatever its object of concern may be. Corresponding to the inauthentic future awaiting, there is a special way of being alongside the things with which one concerns oneself. So when I hear the inauthentic future, I think about, the whisper campaigns that scared you out of a good investment, where everybody's looking at, oh, look at this, this is pretty awesome. Oh, the possibilities for this is sweet. And then somebody rationalizes a problem that is not present at hand. And it completely changes the trajectory of the development of that product. And possibly ruined it. This way of being alongside is the present, the waiting towards. Gegenwart that goes straight to English. Gegenwart. In this context, it seems well to translate this expression by a hendiadys, which, like Heidegger, hyphenation, calls attention to the root meaning of the noun, Gegenwart. See our notes. All right. This ecstatical mode reveals itself if we adduce for comparison this very same ecstasis, but in the mode of authentic temporality, to the anticipation which goes with resoluteness, there belongs a present, in accordance with which resolution discloses the situation. In resoluteness, the present is not only brought back from distraction with the object of one's closest concern, but it gets held in the future and in having been. That presence, which is held in authentic temporality and which thus is authentic itself, we call the moment of vision. Ooh, there's such good gravy in here. All right, nothing to see there. Okay, this term must be understood in the active sense as an ecstasis. It means the resolute rapture, wow, interesting words, with which Dasein is carried away to whatever possibility and circumstances are encountered in the situation as possible objects of concern, but a rapture which is held in resoluteness. Meint die Entschlossen, aber in der Entschlossenheit gehalten in Trocken des Daseins an das, was in der Situation und Besorbergen Möglichkeiten Umstanden begegnet. The verb instrucken literally means to move away or to carry away, but it also taken on the meaning of the rapture, in which one is carried away in a more figurative sense. While the words Entrückung and ecstasy can thus be used in many contexts as synonym. I love synonym. For Heidegger, the former seems the more general. We shall translate Entrücken by rapture or carry away, or as in this case, by a combination of these expressions. Carried away. Yes, that's like when my heart interpreted the situation that insulted me. That's when I finally had time to reflect on that after the work that it was about had been done, and I really processed how much that hurt. Then I went into my meditations about it and started seething about it and thinking about all of that inherent meaning. All that inherent meaning had to flood in. I had to think about everything that it meant, that this thing that was out of character for somebody that I knew personally, would happen. And That's the judgment call in my wisdom that I made. And so far, nobody's had enough heart-centered consciousness to prove that I am the fool. Other than to be a fool that didn't perhaps press harder, didn't impose my Dasein more, to understand, because you don't do that to your friends. You're just there for them. Okay. The moment of vision is a phenomenon which, in principle, cannot be clarified in terms of the now. Dem fetzt. The now is a temporal phenomenon which belongs to time as within timeness. Interesting. The now, in which something arises, passes away, or is present at hand. In the moment of vision, nothing can occur but as an authentic present or waiting towards. The moment of vision permits us to encounter for the first time what can be in a time as ready to hand or present at hand. Okay, but as an authentic present or waiting towards, the moment of vision permits us to encounter for the first time what can be in a time as ready to hand or present at hand. Right? In other words, the anticipatory, you're having a vision. You're having a Sears moment, right? This can happen to somebody who just pays attention, or it can happen to somebody who is doing the work to have higher awareness, higher intuition, higher attention span, to higher ability to put things together, better ability to filter out the inauthentic, right? This is about, as time approaches your personal idea of when you've had enough waiting of the inauthentic, right? How long, right? When somebody lies to you about what's going to happen and it doesn't happen, right? How many times? Rapture, how many times? Just this eclipse, they were like, you're going to get raptured. I got raptured. You saw me get raptured last week. You see me in a rapture. I've been all up in a fucking rapture. So they're right. They were actually fucking right. But they're too stupid because they don't know what a fucking rapture is. Seems like Heidegger does. Anyway. Okay. Let's see. The rapture, the moment of vision. I'm sorry, I'm down here. All right, now is a temporal phenomenon which belongs to time as within timeness. The now, present at hand. Okay, I'm over here. Let's see, it's 10:03. Come on, there we go. Let me just figure out how much further till we get done with A. Okay, we're going to get to B, and we're going to take our first break. In contradistinction to the moment of vision as the authentic present, we call the inauthentic present making present. Formally understood, every present is one which makes present, but not every present has the character of a moment of vision. When we use the expression making present without adding anything further, we always have in mind the inauthentic kind, which is irresolute and does not have the character of a moment of vision. Making present will become clear only in the light of the temporal interpretation of falling into the world of one's concern. Such falling has its existential meaning in making present, but insofar as the potentiality for being, which is projected by inauthentic understanding, is projected in terms of things with which one can be concerned. This means that such understanding temporalizes itself in terms of making present. The moment of vision, however, temporalizes itself in quite the opposite manner, in terms of the authentic future. This whole chapter is kind of about, going from, your fears, your imagination, your hallucination, to the experience giving you the actuality of the facts of the matter. The inauthentic understanding temporalizes itself as an awaiting which makes present Gegenwärtigens Gerwärtigen, something like that. and awaiting to whose ecstatical unity there must belong a corresponding, a having been, the authentic coming towards itself of anticipatory resoluteness is at the same time a coming back to one's own most self, which has been thrown into its individualization. This ecstasis makes it possible for Dasein to be able to take over resolutely that entity which it already is. In anticipating Dasein brings itself again forth into its own most potentiality for being. If being, as having been, is authentic, we call it repetition. Im Vorhoffen hält sich das Dasein wieder in das eigenste Sonkonnen vor, das eigentlich gewesen sein, nennen werde Wiederholung on Wiederholung, and see note. Okay, all right. It didn't get there, but I kind of wanted to read that one. But anyway, when one projects oneself inauthentically towards those possibilities which have been drawn from the object of concern in making it present, this is possible only because Dasein has forgotten itself in its own most thrown potentiality for being. This forgetting is not nothing, nor is it just a failure to remember. It is rather a positive existential mode of one's having been, a mode with a character of its own. The ecstasis, rapture, of forgetting has the character of backing away in the face of one's own most been, and of doing so in a manner which is closed off from itself, in such a manner, indeed, that this backing away closes off ecstatically that in the face of which one is backing away, and thereby closes itself off too. Having forgotten, Vergessenheit, as an inauthentic way of having been, is thus related to that thrown being which is one's own. It is the temporal meaning of that being in accordance with which I am proximally and for the most part as having been. Only on the basis of such forgetting can anything be retained, behalten, by the concernful, making present, which awaits, and what are thus retained are entities encountered within the world with a character other than that of Dasein. To such retaining there corresponds a non-retaining, which represents us with a kind of forgetting in a derivative sense. Interesting. Only the basis for such forgetting. Let me see here. Let me jump. I feel like jumping back up. So much to be said in this. Stasis, rapture, forgetting. I need to get a better grasp on what he's saying about forgetting. When one projects oneself inauthentically towards those possibilities which have been drawn from the object of concern in making it present, this is possible only because Dasein has forgotten itself in its own most thrown potentiality for being. Okay, so that can make sense, right? In my irrational, state that I needed to transmute in the way that I know how, which has to be also done as this kind of ugly public display of attention. Right? I'm putting the evil out of me. I'm taking it out. I'm pushing it out so I can stand outside of it. There's a lot of accusatory questions that I throw at this whole thing. It's kind of like using the shadow as your straw man. This is a part of shadow work, right? And, because I'm sitting there and I'm destroying something that I love, and I'm tearing myself apart, while doing what I must, because I'm scared on a certain level. Not scared like whatever, but I use harsh language. you feel like your throat's been cut, which is appropriate when you're feeling silenced. Throat chakra. The forgetting is not nothing, nor is it just a failure to remember. It is rather a positive, ecstatical mode of one's having been, a mode of character of its own. Character. The ecstasis, rapture, forgetting has the character of backing away in the face of one's ownmost been, and of doing so in a manner which is closed off from itself in such a manner. Indeed, that this backing away closes off ecstatically that in the face of which one is backing away, and thereby closes itself off too. Did I read that? Connotations of... did I read all this? Am I crazy? Rapture, cognate verb, connecting. Originally to move away, but rather different connotation, ordinary German usage. Back away. Military sense. Okay, I don't think I read it. Die Ekstase Entrückung des Vergessens hat den Charakter, das sich selbst verschlossen Ausdruckens vor dem eigensten gewesen, so war dass dieses Ausdrucken vor ekstatisch das Wuver verschließt und in eins damit sich selbst. Heidegger is here connecting the word Entrückung, or our rapture, with the cognate verb ausdrücken, back away, which may be used intransitively in the military sense of decamping, but may also be used transitively in the sense of disconnecting. Both entrücken and ausdrücken mean originally to move away, but they have taken on very different connotations in ordinary German usage. Having forgotten Vergessenheit as an inauthentic way of having been is thus related to that thrown being which is one's own. It is the temporal meaning of that being in accordance with which I am proximately and for the most part as having been. Only in the basis of such forgetting can anything be retained, behalten, by the concernful making present which awaits, and what are thus retained are entities encountered within the world with a character other than that of Dasein. To such retaining there corresponds a non-retaining which represents us with a kind of forgetting in a derivative sense. Interesting, right? And he's talking about a non-Dasein, right? Which I think he's talking about your imagination getting away with you. I think that's kind of what he's talking about. He's trying to have a very sophisticated breakdown of how your imagination is running wild. And people's imaginations are running wild. Everything I read into what happened to me made my imagination run wild. And I could not console the person I was talking to. Because I had already made an appeal he already knew. So no, I had nobody to talk to. I had nothing to work with but my imagination because I was alone and isolated. And I wanted to appeal to everybody. Because it was about something big that I did in the world. So I need to do all that kind of a thing. I really do. Because wow. Right. Just as expecting is possible only on the basis of awaiting, remembering is possible only on that of forgetting and not vice versa. We're in the mode of having forgotten. One's having been discloses primarily the horizon into which a Dasein lost in the superficiality of its object of concern can bring itself by remembering. And remembering would be denn ein Modus der Vergessenheit erschließt die Gefassenheit primer den Horizont in den Heinen das an die Außerlichkeit des besorgten welchen Dasein sich erinnern kann. Here there is presumably a deliberate contrast between the idea of externality in the root meaning of Äußerlichkeit, superficiality, and the idea of putting oneself into something, which is the original sense of sich erinnern, or to remember. We have tried to bring this out by our rather free translation of in den hinein sich erinnern. All right. Let's see. The awaiting which forgets and makes present is an existential unity in its own right, in accordance with which inauthentic understanding temporalizes itself with regards to its temporality. The unity of these ecstasies close off one's authentic potentiality for being and is thus the existential condition for the possibility of irresoluteness. Though inauthentic, concernful, understanding determines itself in the light of making present the object of concern, the temporalizing of the understanding is performed primarily in the future. Woo! Okay. So, yeah, it's a question of when does the future bring the closure? Who knows? Right? Okay. We are going to move on to part B after I irritate you with some very, very loud music.
Eternal permutation to
1 second. I screwed up. Yep. Oh, no, wait. No, I didn't. There we go. Okay, we're good. I'm not using YouTube for this one because I downloaded the album, and so I'm running it off the player. So there won't be ads, but you might hear a little bit of the other song. Anywho, all right, awesome sauce. What is it? Okay, this seems like it happened during this stream, so I got a new sub. So I want to thank Captain Corden, whoever Captain Corden is, unless you're well, hold on. It doesn't matter. It's a 1 month commitment before you can start trolling me. So, if you're a troll that just subbed to me, I can't wait to hear what you gotta say in a month. I'm not doing that with every stream. You can wait to troll me when I'm driving in my car, and it's a complete stream of consciousness fiasco that gets really lost in the poetic weeds, huh? Anyway, Okay. Well, anyway. Okay, B. Temporality of state of mind. Alright, so we're going to get into time and your state of mind. Understanding is never free-floating, but always goes with some state of mind. The there gets equiprimordially disclosed by one's mood in every case, or gets closed off by it. Having a mood brings Dasein face to face with its thrownness in such a manner that this thrownness is not known as such, but disclosed far more primordially in how one is. Existentially being thrown means finding oneself in some state of mind or other. One's state of mind is therefore based upon thrownness. My mood represents whatever may be the way in which I am primarily the entity that has been thrown. How does the temporal constitution of having a mood let itself be made visible? How will the ecstatical unity of one's current temporality give any insight into the existential connection between one's state of mind and one's understanding? One's mood discloses in the manner of turning thither or turning away from one's own Dasein, bringing Dasein face to face with the that it is of its own thrownness. Whether authentically revealing it or inauthentically covering it up becomes existentially possible only if Dasein's being, by its very meaning, constantly is, as having been. The bin is not what first brings one face to face with the thrown entity which one is oneself, but the ecstasis of the bin is what first makes it possible to find oneself in the way of having a state of mind. Understanding is grounded primarily in the future. One's state of mind, however, temporalizes itself primarily in having been. In our italicizations, we follow the older editions and the newer. Okay, so whatever. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, and I missed this particular one, so let me read this one up here. Das Ringen für das Geworfen Sehenden, das man selbst ist, schafft nicht erst das Gewissen, sondern dessen Extes ermöglicht erst das sich finden in der Weise des sich Befindens. We have construed das Gewissen and dessen Extes as the subject of their respective clauses, but other interpretations are not impossible. All right, good. So that's clear. Where are we at? Okay. Mood temporalize themselves. Moods temporalize themselves. That is, their specific ecstasis belongs to a future and a present in such a way that these equiprimordial ecstases are modified by having been. Oh, yeah. Your mood is such a massive part of your Dasein, of your world. The things that take the very same environment that you are standing in with the person next to you, and that environment is an environment that is that they're experiencing in a state of upset, and the other person is experiencing it in a state of ecstasy. Right? Horror films are kind of like that because there's the monster in the room and the victim in the room, and the monster's having a blast, and the victim is just an adrenochrome resource. We have emphasized that while moods, of course, are ontically well known to us, bekannt, they are not recognized, erkannt, in their primordial existential function. They are regarded as fleeting experiences which color one's whole psychical condition. Anything which is observed to have the character of turning up and disappearing in a fleeting manner belongs to the primordial constancy of existence. But all the same, what should moods have in common with time? That these experiences come and go, and that they run their course in time, is a trivial thing to establish. Certainly, and indeed, this can be established in an psychological manner. Our task, however, is to exhibit the ontological structure of having a mood in its existential temporal constitution. And of course, this is proximally just a matter of first making the temporality of moods visible. The thesis that one's state of mind is grounded primarily in having been means that the existential basic character of moods lies in bringing one back to something. This bringing back does not first produce a having been, but in any state of mind, some mode of having been is made manifest for existential analysis. Da ist es selbst die Gefassenheit nicht erst hersonden, die Befindlichkeit offenbart für die existenziell Analyse sie einen Modus der Gefassenheit. The grammar of the first clause is ambiguous. Okay. So, if we are to interpret states of mind temporally, our aim is not one of deducing moods from temporality and dissolving them into pure phenomenon of temporalizing. All we have to do is to demonstrate that except on the basis of temporality, moods are not possible in what they signify in an existential way or in how they signify it. Our temporal interpretation will restrict itself to a phenomena of fear and anxiety, which we have already analyzed in a preparatory manner. We shall begin our analysis by exhibiting the temporality of fear. Right, exactly. Fear has been characterized as an inauthentic state of mind. To what extent does the existential meaning which makes such a state of mind possible lie in what has been? Which mode of this ecstasis designates the specific temporality of fear? Fear is a fearing in the face of something threatening, of something which is detrimental to Dasein's factical potentiality for being, and which brings itself close in the way we have described within the range of the ready-to-hand and the present-at-hand with which we concern ourselves. Exactly. My concern is the relationship between the work I produce and my friends that are on my wavelength, that can hear what I produce, can understand what I produce. And it rocks my world when there is such a vote of no confidence, unwarranted, against me. Right? You're a friend. You brag about like what you do. You're very proud of your work. Your friends know this intimately. They know how much you love it. You know, they've expressed how much they've loved your work, and then for them to not give something very controversial that you do a fair hearing is such a slap in the face, right? So there's the fear in there, right? And you know that fear is what? It's your heart, your inner child, you know, because your inner child is always going to have that compassion. That inner child, when you can tap into it through the individuation process, that's your higher self, which gets you in complete sync with the all, with God. And it's not always easy. And you don't have it. You don't have it if you can't get past what you are afraid of. Fearing discloses something threatening, and it does so by way of everyday circumspection. A subject which merely beholds would never be able to discover anything of the sort. But if something is disclosed when one fears in the face of it, is not this disclosure a letting something come towards oneself? Ein Aufsicht zu kommen lassen? Has not fear been rightly defined as the expectation of some oncoming evil? Eins ankommenden Übels, nullum futurum. Is not the primary meaning of fear the future, and least of all one's having been? Not only does fearing relate itself to something future in the signification of something which first comes on in time, but this self-relating is itself futural in the primordially temporal sense. All this is incontestable, manifestly, and awaiting is one of the things that belongs to the existential temporal constitution of fear. But proximally, this just means that the temporality of fear is one that is inauthentic. Boom shakalaka. And the inauthentic does not stand a chance to tear. Is fearing in the face of something merely an expecting of something threatening which is coming on. Such an expectation need not be fear already. It is so far from being fear that the specific character which fear as a mood possesses is missing. This character lies in the fact that in fear the awaiting lets what is threatening come back, zurückkommen, to one's factically concernful potentiality for being. Only if that to which this comes back is already ecstatically open can that which threatens be awaited right back to the entity which I myself am. Only so can my Dasein be threatened. Oh, that sounds exactly like all the invocations I've been spewing. Zurück auf das Sand, das ich den kann, das bedrohlich, nur gerchtig, und so das Dasein bedroht werden, wenn das worauf das zurück auf, schon überhaupt ekstasisch aufinisch. Ugh, it's still sloppy, but I think my German's getting better. Anyway, the awaiting which fears is one which is afraid for itself. That is to say, fearing in the face of something is in each case a fearing about. Therein lies the character of fear as mood and as effect. Now, I've said it before, so I must say it again. I have a daily attestation and invocation to myself at the end of my dawn rituals, when I do my yoga and I do my short qigong moment, my short meditative moment, and I pop up and hold hands onto my heart center. And amongst the many things I say in my mantra is I do not fear failure, shame, injury, or death. Because we all know that fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death, etc., etc., etc. I must be more dive. Look at me on the Quizak Satarac. When one's being in the world has been threatened and it concerns itself with the ready to hand, it does so as a factical potentiality for being of its own. In the face of this potentiality, one backs away in bewilderment, and this kind of forgetting oneself is what constitutes the existential temporal meaning of fear. give me a moment, please. You know what? I'm starting to wonder. I'm making sure I'm not an idiot. Hold on. What am I looking at here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, we're good. All right. Aristotle rightly defines fear as... Hold on a moment. All of this... Let me open up real quick. I should have in here my Heidegger notes. Bear with me. Uno momento, por favor. Let's see. Heidegger Greek. Thank you. Let's see if I can find this one. Boom. Okay. Looking at it. I gotta match up all these letters. Look at that. That's the pi symbol. All right, I know that one. All right. Come on. It's a short word. Please be in here. Oh, you must be in here. No. Oi. Oh, I don't see you. I'm sorry, guys. I may not be able to give you this one. And sadly, my Greek people didn't make the live stream today. So, okay, I don't know this one. All right, am I on the right screen? Give me a moment. Yes, all right. Okay, so it defines fear as a kind of depression or bewilderment, which I'm assuming that's what that means, is a kind of depression or bewilderment. Obviously, I just wish I knew what the term... I wish I knew the phonetic. I just wish I knew the phonetics of the Greek presented. That's all I ask, is the fucking phonetics, so I can say it and feel the... Because that's what's important and needed about the oratory condition. All right? I want to know the right sounds for those symbols. This depression forces Dasein back to its thrownness, but in such a way that this thrownness gets quite closed off. The bewilderment is based upon a forgetting, when one forgets and backs away in the face of a factical potentiality for being, which is resolute. One clings to those possibilities of self-preservation and evasion, which one has already discovered circumspectively beforehand. When concern is afraid, it leaps from next to next, because it forgets itself and therefore does not take hold of any definite possibilities. Every possible possibility offers itself, and this means that the impossible ones do so too. The man who fears does not stop with any of these. His environment does not disappear, but it is encountered without his knowing his way about in it any longer. Right, I talked about, that sense of feeling confused, isolated, and alone. Right? Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right. This bewildered making present of the first thing that comes into one's head is something that belongs with forgetting oneself in fear. It is well known, for instance, that the inhabitants of a burning house will often save the most indifferent things that are most closely ready to hand when one has forgotten oneself and makes present a jumble of hovering possibilities. One thus makes possible that bewilderment which goes to make up the mood character of fear. The mood character of fear. Interesting. So could that be what I was going through, right? A modality. Das Selbstvergessen, Gegenwärtigen, Essensgewehr von schwebenden Möglichkeiten ermöglicht die Verwirrung, als welch sie den Simonscharakter der Furcht ausmacht. The pronoun sie does not appear in the older editions. All that to tell me all about a pronoun. Ah, man, the having forgotten which goes with such bewilderment modifies the awaiting to and gives it the character of depressed or bewildered awaiting, which is distinct from any pure expectations. The specific ecstatical unity which makes it existentially possible to be afraid temporalizes itself primarily out of the kind of forgetting characterized above, which as a mode of having been, modifies its present and its future in their own temporalizing. The temporality of fear is a forgetting which awaits and makes present. The common sense interpretation of fear, taking its orientation from what we encounter within the world, seeks in the first instance to designate the oncoming evil as that in the face of which we fear, and correspondingly to define our relation to this evil as one of the expecting. Anything else which belongs to the phenomenon remains a feeling of pleasure or displeasure. How is the temporality of anxiety related to that of fear? We have called the phenomenon of anxiety a basic state of mind. Anxiety brings Dasein face to face with its own most being thrown and reveals the uncanniness of everyday familiar being in the world. Anxiety, like fear, has its character formally determined by something in the face of which one is anxious and something about which one is anxious. But our analysis has shown that these two phenomena coincide. This does not mean that their structural characters are melted away into one another, as if anxiety were anxious, neither in the face of anything nor about anything. Their coinciding means rather that the entity by which both these structures are filled in. Das sei erfüllend sind in the same, namely Dasein, in particular, that in the face of anything nor about anything. Their coinciding means rather that the entity by which both these structures are filled in, das sei erfüllend sind, is the same, namely Dasein, in particular, that in the face of which one has anxiety is not encountered as something definite with which one can concern oneself. The threatening does not come from what is ready to hand or present at hand, but rather from the fact that neither of these says anything any longer. Environmental entities no longer have any involvement. The world in which I exist has sunk into insignificance, and the world which... See? What have I been saying? Martin Heidegger. If I told Martin Heidegger my story, he'd probably give me a fucking hug. Anyway, and the world which is thus disclosed is one in which entities can be freed only in the character of having no involvement. Anxiety is anxious in the face of the nothing of the world. But this does not mean that in anxiety we experience something like the absence of what is present at hand within the world. The present at hand must be encountered in just such a way that it does not have any involvement whatsoever, but can show itself in an empty mercilessness, which this implies, however, that our concernful awaiting finds nothing in terms of which it might be able to understand itself. It clutches at the nothing of the world, but when our understanding has come up against the world, it is brought to being in the world, as such through anxiety. Being in the world, however, is both that anxiety is anxious in the face of and what it is anxious about. To be anxious in the face of does not have the character of an expecting or of any kind of awaiting. That in the face of which one has anxiety is indeed already there, namely. Dasein itself, in that case, does not anxiety get constituted by a future? Certainly, but not by the inauthentic future of awaiting. Anxiety discloses an insignificance of the world, and this insignificance reveals the nullity of that with which one can concern oneself, or in other words, the impossibility of projecting oneself upon a potentiality for being, which belongs to existence, and which is founded primarily upon one's object of concern. The revealing of this impossibility, however, signifies that one is letting the possibility of an authentic potentiality for being be lit up. What is the temporal meaning of this revealing? Anxiety is anxious about naked Dasein as something that has been thrown into uncanniness. It brings one back to the pure that it is of one's own most individualized thrownness. This bringing back has neither the character of an evasive forgetting nor that of a remembering, but just as little does anxiety imply that one has already taken over one's existence into one's resolution and done so by a repeating. On the contrary, anxiety brings one back to one's thrownness as something possible, which can be repeated, and in this way it also reveals the possibility of an authentic potentiality for being, a potentiality which must, in repeating, come back to its throne there, but come back as something future, which comes towards Zukunftiz. The character of having been is constitutive for the state of mind of anxiety, and bringing one face to face with repeatability is the specific ecstatic mode of this character. Hang on a moment, please. Aha! There we go. Hey, what's going on? Zephyr! What's up, Zephyr? Zephyr. All right, I hope I'm not being dumb. I think I know who you are. I'm pretty sure it's you. So we're gonna mod you. Hey, Zephyr. All right, good to see you here. And Blue Kachina, good to see you here. All right, guys. This has been such a beautiful. It's nice that this chapter lines up. It's like Heidegger is helping my argument. Oh, yes. Thank you, Marty. It's about your kids, Marty. Something terrible's gonna happen to your kids. Okay, where was I? The forgetting which is constitutive for fear bewilders Dasein and lets it drift back and forth between worldly possibilities which it has not seized upon, in contrast to this making present which is not held onto. The present of anxiety is held onto when one brings oneself back to one's own most thrownness. The existential meaning of anxiety is such that it cannot lose itself in something with which it might be concerned. If anything like this happens in a similar state of mind, this is fear, which the everyday understanding confuses with anxiety. But even through the present of anxiety, it is held onto. It does not, as yet, have the character of the moment of vision, which temporalizes itself in a resolution. Anxiety merely brings one into the mood for a possible resolution. The present of anxiety holds one into the moods for a possible resolution. The present of anxiety holds the moment of vision at the ready. The off dem sprung. That sounds pretty good. All right. At such a moment, it itself, only itself, is possible. The temporality of anxiety is peculiar, for anxiety is grounded primordially in having been, and only out of this do the future and the present temporalize themselves. In this peculiar temporality is demonstrated the possibility of that power which is distinctive for the mood of anxiety. In this, Dasein is taken all the way back to its naked uncanniness and becomes fascinated by it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Listen, guys, people, myself included, have fucking fallen to pieces, over different things in their life, right? And I've been there before 1,000 times, right? I've gotten very good at taking care of myself, extraordinarily good at taking care of myself, to the point where I'm very comfortable sharing all of my feelings with everybody because I understand my place of strength. Everything else is just me provoking answers. I am provoking answers. That's what my vorpal tongue shall do. It will invoke the question. All right. Fascinated by it. All right, let's read this motherfucker right here. En der eigentümlichen Sittlichkeit der Angst, gotta love Angst, das sei ursprünglich in der Gewissenheit gründet und aus erst Zukunft und Gegenwart sich sättigen. Erweist sich die Möglichkeit der Machtigkeit, durch die sich die Stimmung der Angst aussichtet. In ihr ist das Dasein wollig auf sein Nachtunlichkeit zurückgenommen und von ihr benommen. In these two sentences, there are no less than 6 feminine pronouns. There was feminine in the... German is not a very feminine language, man. Feminine nouns, which might serve as the antecedents of the pronouns. I'm sorry, I'm lying. If you are in fawn, you have feminine German, okay? Anyway, in their several appearances, we have chosen the interpretation which seems most plausible to us, but others are perhaps no less defensible. The etymological connection between zurückgenommen, or taken back, and benommen, fascinated, does not show up in the English version. It is obviously deliberate, and it gets followed up in the next sentence. This fascination, however, not only takes Dasein back from its worldly possibilities, but at the same time gives it the possibility of an authentic potentiality for being. Yes, because as I fucking went through all that stuff and asked myself to the world 20 bazillion effing questions and pursued every angle of possibility over my interpretation of the meaning of the anomaly that I had to take very seriously. You know, you don't just act so different. Like, you know, like when I take on such a controversial person and I know what that is in the scene, and I don't realize that you're trying to be part of that scene, right? Because that's my thing. It's just like, I just look at you and just like, no, you're above being in that petty world. You're in the world of greater men like me. I think highly of you. And then I see the choice of the lowly path. And I look at the lowly path and I notice all my enemies are on the lowly path. And it made me want to vomit. And thus I had to get all of that out. Okay. Yet neither of these moods, fear and anxiety, ever occurs just isolated in the stream of experiences. Each of them determines an understanding or determines itself in terms of one. Fear is occasioned by entities with which we concern ourselves environmentally. Anxiety, however, springs from Dasein itself. When fear assails us, it does so from what is within the world. Anxiety arises out of being in the world as thrown being towards death. When understood temporally, this mounting of anxiety out of Dasein means that the future and the present of anxiety temporalize themselves out of a primordial being as having been, in the sense of bringing us back to repeatability. But anxiety can mount authentically only in a Dasein which is resolute. He who is resolute knows no fear. Thank you, Martin. But he understands the possibility of anxiety as the possibility of the very mood which neither inhibits nor bewilders him. Anxiety liberates him from possibilities which count for nothing. Hold on. Count for nothing. Nichtigen. That sounds like a nichtigen. Because I've said counts for nothing a million fucking times in different rants in my life, so I kind of like want to know this term. Nichtigen. Nichtigen. You know, so like that way when I'm arguing with somebody and they're fucking they're just talking shit. It's just like, yeah, and your fucking point is nicht again. Right? There you go. There we go. German. Giving me some nice offensive words. I feel only temporarily superior from time to time, but I know in the ledger domain the books are balanced. Oh, yeah. Hey, look, you, temporarily superior from... Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Hey, look, you know, we're all measuring ourselves, and it's not superiority. I am not superior. You know, in the basic sense of being a person, a soul, than all of these people that I'm talking about. Right? Not at all. In fact, if you listen carefully, I'm talking about my willingness to get killed. Right? I'm talking about my willingness to have everything destroyed by you people. Destroy me. Because I am going to say that this is where I stand. This is what I believe. This is what it means. This is what I think of you. This is how I feel about you. Right? That's this guy. That's this no-fear motherfucker that Heidegger's talking about right here. And lets him become free for those which are authentic. God, I love that. Oh, my God. All the right choices. Although both fear and anxiety as modes of state of mind are grounded primarily in having been, they each have different sources with regards to their own temporalization in the temporality of care. Anxiety springs from the future of resoluteness, which fear springs from the lost present, of which fear is fearfully apprehensive, so that it falls prey to it more than ever. Yes. And perhaps that is what we call the spiraling effect. All right. Oh, did I miss an annotation? Okay, because I'm at 2 already. I missed 1. Where was 1? Where was annotation 1? Oh, it was up there. In terms of 1. Okay. Beide Stimmungen, Furcht und Angst kommen jedoch da nur isoliert vor im Erlebnisstrom, sondern bestimmen je ein Verstehen BZW? Where's the vowels? What vowels am I supposed to say? Is this archaic Jewish? What is this? Bzwa. Sich aus einem solchen. Heidegger writes bestimmen with a hyphen to call attention to the fact that the words bestimmen, determine, and Stimmung, mood, have a common stem. Okay, so your mood and your determination have some sort of common branch that as held states. Okay, yeah, all right. Determination. Yeah. I mean, you know, you're going to be in a certain Are you in a fight or flight? It's fight or flight in a sense, right? And your determination and your mood is in polar opposites, you know, in this particular respect. Okay? Okay, and then I got to read 2 also. Die Angst, die angry. Love it. All right. Die Angst entspringt aus der Zukunft der Entschlossenheit, die Furcht aus der verlorenen Gegenwart, die furchtsam, die Furcht befürchtet, ihr zuerst recht zu verfallen. The grammar of this passage is ambiguous and would also permit us to write the lost present, which is fearfully apprehensive of fear so that. Okay. Cool. But may not the thesis of the temporality of moods hold only for those phenomena which we have selected for our analysis? How is a temporal meaning to be found in the pallid lack of mood which dominates the gray every day through and through? And how about the temporality of such moods and effects as hope, joy, enthusiasm, gaiety? Not only fear and anxiety, but other moods are founded existentially upon one's having been. This becomes plain if we merely mention such a phenomena as satiety, sadness, melancholy, and desperation. Of course, these must be interpreted on the broader basis of an existential analytic of Dasein that has been well worked out. But even a phenomenon like hope, which seems to be found wholly upon the future, must be analyzed in much the same way as fear. Hope has sometimes been characterized as the expectation of a bonum futurum, to distinguish it from fear, which relates itself to a malum futurum. But what is decisive for the structure of hope as a phenomenon is not so much the futural character of that to which it relates itself, but rather the existential meaning of hoping itself. Even here its character as a mood lies primarily in hoping as hoping for something for oneself. Vorsicht erhoffen. And I've talked a great deal about the self side of it too. Because that's just, we got to be honest. We have our own personal desires, We always got to be honest about, your personal motivations, right? You got to be upfront about, part of, why we love each other, right? It's just you are this value to my life. It's not just conversation and laughs. It's so much bigger than that. My idea of my relationship and my future with these friends was bigger. And it felt like they were starting to tell me nah, and I just hated that they couldn't be straight with me, because that's what that looks like in an insulting way, and they need to know that they should not treat people like that. It's insulting. Maybe I'm the first person to ever tell them that is not how you treat people, just because, they, like that. Just when, if it's understood that you're friends, it's just in low care. It's one thing if I'm just some schmuck, Anyway, because, don't treat me like just some schmuck, because I'll show you how much of a schmuck I am. Years. Is it just blowing smoke up my ass because I was fun? Because I am fun. I am ridiculously fun. When I'm sad, the world's sad. So I try not to be sad, because my mood is infectious. All right. Okay. Meaning, even here, its character as a mood lies primarily in oneself. Vorsicht erhoffen. Where was I? Darn. I'm not at the top. Ugh. That was a really good diatribe. Hold on a second. Let me just... Okay, we're going to get to C, and then we're going to play the music. From depressing misgivings, okay, hoping itself... wait, so I think I'm over here. Where was 2 up here again? Because I read it already. Nicht again, right? Hope it takes... All right. Bonum futurum, I remember reading that, okay. But what is decisive for the structure of hope as a phenomenon is not so much the futural character of that to which it relates itself, but rather the existential meaning of hoping itself. Even here, its character as a mood lies primarily in hoping as hoping its blah, 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 blah. Rather, exceptional meaning of hoping itself. Even here, its character as a mood lies primarily in hoping as hoping for something for oneself. That's right. He who hopes takes himself with him into his hope, as it were, and brings himself up against what he hopes for. Yes, my hope and my expectation about what I thought my friends meant, about what the future, the thing that built it as a functional Dasein that made me happy, that made them happy. But this presupposes that he has somehow arrived at himself. To say that hope brings alleviation, from depressing misgivings, means merely that even hope, as a state of mind, is still related to our burdens, and related in the mode of being as having been. Such a mood of elation, or better, one of which elates, is ontologically possible, only if Dasein has an ecstatico-temporal relation to the thrown ground of itself. Furthermore, the pallid lack of mood, indifference, which is addicted to nothing and has no urge for anything, and which abandons itself to whatever the day may bring, yet in so doing takes everything along with it in a certain manner, demonstrates most penetratingly the power of forgetting in the everyday mode of that concern which is closest to us, just living along das Dahinleben in a way which lets everything be as it is based on forgetting and abandoning oneself to one's thrownness. It has the ecstatical meaning of an inauthentic way of having been. Indifference, which can go along with busying oneself head over heels, must be sharply distinguished from the equanimity. This latter mood springs from resoluteness, which in a moment of vision looks at those situations which are possible in one's potentiality for being a whole, as disclosed in our anticipation of Zoom, or death. 1 second. Your fantastic, persistent attention. You ought to be honest, but I don't take that for granted in others. But yeah, okay. Expectations often lead to disappointment, but not as often as unreasonable expectations. Of course, yeah, the expectations and everything else. And it was just such a simple, heart-based expectation. It's simple, not complicated at all. Not complicated in any iota, because I don't put complications on my goddamn friends. Only an entity which is in accordance with meaning of its being. Right? It's just you don't trust me. It's so insulting to not be trusted. It's so fucking insulting when you've built rapport and they've demonstrated that they like you so damn much. You know, at least they like you. You know, they can't love you, but they like you. Anyway. Only an entity which, in accordance with the meaning of its being, finds itself in a state of mind, significant, that it is to say an entity which in existing is as already having been, and which exists in a constant mode of what has been, can become affected. Ontologically, such affection presupposes making present, and indeed in such a manner that in this making present, Dasein can be brought back to itself as something that has been. It remains a problem in itself to define ontologically the way in which the senses can be stimulated or touched in something that merely has life, and how and where. Let's see. Wie und wo. The earlier editions have wie und ob, how and whether. Okay. Really, and being animals, for instance, is constituted by some kind of time. Hold on, let me get that again, because it remains a problem in itself to define ontologically the way in which the senses can be stimulated or touched in something that merely has life, and how and where, or how and whether. How and whether the being of animals, for instance, is constituted by some kind of time. Let's see. Your head runs through a lot of things while you're reading, while you're listening to yourself and absorbing the own read, and it can be really hard sometimes to pick up on what maybe was an oversight, right? So I gotta read back over this one real quick before we jump to the next break. Ontologically, such affection presupposes making present, and indeed in such a manner that in this making present Dasein can be brought back to itself as something that has been. It remains a problem in itself to define ontologically the way in which the senses can be stimulated or touched in something that merely has life, and how and whether the being of animals, for instance, is constituted by some kind of time. Am I missing something? When did he bring up animals? Why are we bringing up animals? Did I miss a citation of an animal somewhere? Somebody help me. Did I read the word animal earlier and miss it? Why am I getting being of animals without any animal words telling me something? There's unto death. And are we just talking about human beings as animals? Sorry if I'm not in the mic. Sorry. I don't know. That one's a little bit confusing. You guys see it right here. I'm going to play the music and give myself a break, and I don't know if I'm going to meditate on this one. We'll see what comes next. Anyway, here we go. Come on. Play. There we go. Yeah, I'm so fired up. The song's called Ascension. The whole album's called The Deceivers. And it's, oh man, the Skalds have sent me many muses to support me. I am feeling all of the auguries. It's been ridiculous. It's been fucking ridiculous. Woo! High magic, real high magic, true, authentic high magic. Not just talking about a podcast. Oh, good old ha magique. Let's see here. There's a C and a D, and then we're done with the chapter. And we'll probably be done. This has been a big chapter. It's been nice and sectional. So I think we'll just do one chapter for tonight. I really wanted to see how this went after the explosion that I gave myself. Oh man, it is beautiful. Taking personal responsibility for your actions and regaining control. Anyway, in our temporal interpretation of understanding and state of mind, we not only have come up against a primary ecstasis for each of these phenomenon, but at the same time we have always come up against temporality as a whole. Just as understanding is made possible primarily by the future and moods, and are made possible by having been the third constitutive item in the structure of care, namely, falling has its existential meaning in the present. Our preparatory analysis of falling began with an interpretation of idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity. In the temporal analysis of falling, we shall take the same course, but we shall restrict our investigation to a consideration of curiosity. Interesting, for here the specific temporality of falling is more easily seen. Okay. Interesting. Oh, this could help, whatever this is, could help us by understanding the structure of a spiral. It might. I'm thinking that this falling seems like it's the same thing as what they call spiraling, right? Which one could argue that I was spiraling. But hey, some people are worth the spiral, aren't they? People are worth the spiral sometimes. When it hurts bad enough. Okay. Our analysis of idle talk and ambiguity, however, presupposes our having already clarified the temporal constitution of discourse and of explanation interpretation. By the way, just wanted to check in with the chat room real quick. Blue Kachina had said, actually, let me see here. Zephyr actually says, I had a similar realization with my former podcast mates, and when I realized they had misjudged me so completely that they didn't at all know me, I could no longer trust them. Yeah, there's always a thing that happens, right? It's just like what's happening with me and the people that, I'm free to talk about. I just want to do it on this program, right? We can talk about all that in another program. This is structurally for the sake of the relationship with Dasein, because, Dasein is really talking about relationships, because for the most part, it's other people. When wacky stuff happens in nature, you don't really have to get that much into the quantum of it. Here we're quantifying every little thing happening to us, and it's one thing in the woods, and it's another thing in the office, right? So these highly different relationship environments with our attention and our heart rate, right? So like there's the buddy, there's the buddy stuff, right? It's kind of like I had my experience, jumping in those early times let's not even talk about the recent shit. Revolution Radio in 2012, when I'm a 32-year-old, slightly over, fairly overweight, metalhead, kind of nerdish guy at the same time, struggling, trying to do metal in the Bronx scene, but really just kind of in the absolute depths of the covert Great Depression we had been living through, just squeezing the life out of, all of us, with what their expectations of a workforce standard kind of thing was, or whatever. Nobody having the voice, to tell people, fuck off. I want to have the world that, now it's 2024, and, the world on the ground game, really, if you know what you're doing, it functions way better than just the madness that you see in the politically charged hubs of the world, right? Because, everybody wants to be in their place of apolitical, and, there's still going to be all sorts of inherent great schisms on just a social level with these different people that happen to also work under their political organizations, just by whatever party they're registered with or something to that effect, right? So my point is that, like, you've got some common interests, you're chill, right? Everything's going good, and who fucking complains about people in a disposition of go along to get along? Who would fucking complain? Right? We're always trying to get to know each other. Maybe I never did I not establish trust? Did they not vocalize that I just didn't establish it? Like, you give, you just make it simple, and you're just giving your heart, and it's just like, okay, I get it. Maybe it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't want to tell you all the time about all my little super personal things that are connected to all my super personal, insecurities about, like, things with dad or whatever. It's just like, I'm kind of like living in the present, and that stuff can come up, or like what did I miss in establishing trust, where you were just egging me on because you trusted me enough to be safe, because how much is Steve really just needs friends, it's just like I'm not like a charity case. Maybe I was a pathetic charity. Like, I get it, I changed. Maybe I just literally these guys wouldn't have considered me, because of if I had just jumped into that community, and at that time I was more like this, at like what would be 38 years old, I think, is when I really started like doing bear associations and things like that. Anyway, curiosity is a distinctive tendency of Dasein's being, in accordance with which Dasein concerns itself with the potentiality for seeing. Like the concept of sight, seeing will not be restricted to awareness through the eyes of the body. Awareness, in the broader sense, lets what is ready to hand and what is present at hand be encountered bodily in themselves with regard to the way they look. Letting them be thus encountered is grounded in a present. This present gives us, in general, the ecstatical horizon within which entities can have bodily presence. Curiosity, however, does not make present the present at hand in order to tarry alongside it and understand it. It seeks to see only in order to see and to have seen. As this making present, which gets entangled in itself, curiosity has an ecstatical unity with a corresponding future and a corresponding having been. The craving for the new one is, of course, a way of proceeding towards something not yet seen. but in such a manner that the making present seeks to extricate itself from awaiting. Curiosity is futural in a way which is altogether inauthentic, and in such a manner, moreover, that it does not await a possibility, but in its craving just desires such a possibility as something that is actual. Curiosity gets constituted by making present, which is not held onto, but which is merely making present, thereby seeks constantly to run away from the awaiting in which it is nevertheless held, through not held on, though not held onto. Okay, let's see. Oh, I missed annotation 1. Okay, it was just up here. The craving for the new. Okay. Die Ger nach dem Neuen. Here Heidegger calls attention to the etymological structure of the word Neugier, or curiosity is like Neugier? Like this word has to be this word. Doesn't this word have to be this word? Ah, you Germans. Excuse me. God damn it. All right, listen here. I'm not going to get fucking tripped up about this. Look, my tongue just might say nigger. Give me a goddamn fucking break. Die Neugier wird konstituiert durch ein ungehaltenes Gegenwärtigen, das nur gegenwärtigen, dann ständig dem Gewärtigen, deren es doch gehalten ist, zu entlaufen sucht. This sentence involves a play on the words gehalten and gegenwärtigen, gehalten and ungehalten, which is not easily reproduced, while ungehalten can mean not held on to, as we have often translated it. It can also mean that one can no longer contain oneself and become indignant or angry in the present passage. Heidegger may well have more than one meaning in mind. The point would be that in curiosity we are kept or held, awaiting something which we make present to ourselves so vividly that we try to go beyond the mere awaiting of it and become irritated or indignant because we are unable to do so. Yeah, I was unable to produce the paradise with my friends. So while we are held in our awaiting, we do not hold on to it. Okay. The present arises or leaps away from the awaiting which belongs to it, and it does so in the sense of running away from it, as we have just emphasized. I suppose in a sense you could say it was not like a running away, I'm scared, but it's just I'm getting away from you because I don't want you in my world, right? Die Gegenwart entspringt dem Zughorchigen, Gegenwärtigen, in dem betonten Siedens Entlaufens, while the verb entspringen can mean arise from or spring from, as it usually does in the work. It can also mean run away from or escape from, as Heidegger says it does here. We shall accordingly translate it in the context by the more literal leap away of occasionally by arise or leap away. The point of this passage will perhaps be somewhat plainer if one keeps in mind that when Heidegger speaks of the present Gegenwart or making present Gegenwärtigen as leaping away, he is using these nouns in the more literal sense of waiting towards. Thus, in one's present curiosity, one leaps away from what one has been awaiting and does so by waiting for something different. Taking a breath. Okay. Where are we? Back up to 1. There we are. Where are we at? Okay, we also have here, Blue Kachina said, if it wasn't for being misjudged, I wouldn't be missed at all. Oh, come on. Oh, Blue. I know. We've all been there. Woo. We've all been there. Ah, man. It's always a sucky revelation. Anyway, yeah, because of experience. It's okay, Zephyr. It's literally he's talking about what I just went through. It's all right. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. So that's why he thinks that. Right? But come on, I don't think he thinks that. Let's really, shall we use the word compassionate? Throw some James True vernacular in there, right? Blue Kachina is compassionating with me that he knows the same experience, and it's a feeling. It's not what he thinks, it's what he feels. Why do you feel that? Remember feelings, Zephyr. Always remember your feelings. They are your inner authority. And I'm not sure if that is fortunate or not for you. I don't think it is. I know it. I consider myself very fortunate. Okay, well, I can say for me, it's worth letting people try to get to know the real me. But I have no idea if it's better than how it makes me feel to think that I am being understood. Yeah. Right, exactly. Well, let's face it. Being understood, nothing matters with anybody else if you're not being understood, because then nobody else is doing anything that is intentionally supporting your Dasein. You're sympathetically getting support for your Dasein because of what you're looking for that you see in them, but they don't get what's in you. And that can be really, really innocent. That can be extraordinarily innocent, right? I want what my friends missed to be that innocent. I want to see a demonstration that is a bigger apology than my lion's roar. Not a bigger, not that I'm saying that they need to apologize if I am wrong, but they make that demonstration of why they are right. Talking to my heart, not my mind, my heart. With sufficient amount of evidence, because trust has to be reestablished now. It can't just be even something that you say publicly. It's got to be a big, do you know how to demonstrate trust? Because I never had to be in this position before. And I just want the basic conditions of love that I need to be there. I do not have unconditional love. I do not have unconditional love. Thank God I don't have unconditional love, because that's how lambs get slaughtered. But the making present, which leaps away in curiosity, is so little devoted to the thing it is curious about, that when it obtains sight of anything, it already looks away to what is coming next. The making present, which arises or leaps away from the awaiting of a definite possibility which one has taken hold of, makes possible ontologically that not tarrying which is distinctive of curiosity. The making present does not leap away from the awaiting in such a manner, as it were, that it detaches itself from that awaiting and abandons it to itself. If we understand this ontically, this leaping away is rather an ecstatical modification of awaiting, and of such a kind that the awaiting leaps after the making present. The awaiting gives its... yep, that's two. All right, let's... There we go. Das dieses dem Gegenwärtigen nachspringt. The idea seems to be that when curiosity makes present new possibilities, the current awaiting is redirected towards these instead of towards the possibility which have been awaited hitherto. Yes, okay, back up here. The awaiting gives itself up, as it were, nor does it any longer let any inauthentic possibilities of concern come towards it from that with which it concerns itself, unless these are possibilities only for making present which is not held on to. When the awaiting is ecstatically modified by the making present, which leaps away, so that it becomes an awaiting which leaps after this modification, is the existential temporal condition for the possibility of distraction. Through the awaiting which leaps after, on the other hand, the making present is abandoned more and more to itself. It makes present for the sake of the present. It thus entangles itself in itself, so that the distracted not tarrying becomes never dwelling anywhere. This latter mode of the present is the counter-phenomenon at the opposite extreme from the moment of vision. In never dwelling anywhere, being there is everywhere and nowhere. The moment of vision, however, brings existence into the situation and discloses the authentic there. I do believe that the translator's done a really good job. This sounds so close to how I talk about shit. It's great. It's fucking great. The more inauthentically the present is, that is, the more making present comes towards itself, the more it flees in the face of a definite potentiality for being and closes it off. But in that case, all the less can the future come back to the entity which has been thrown. In the leaping away of the present, one also forgets increasingly the fact that curiosity always holds by what is coming next and has forgotten what has gone before. Okay. Oh, that must be down here. Need Naxten hält und das Worden vergessen hat. Whatever that means. Okay. Is not a result that ensues only from curiosity, but is the ontological condition for curiosity itself. As regards their temporal meaning, the characteristics of falling, which we have, because that's my point, right? Their behavior invoked curiosity. And such a level, and curiosity meaning doubt. And I couldn't believe I found doubt there. I couldn't believe I found doubt. I couldn't believe I had not articulated myself well enough, or that they couldn't tell me that I didn't articulate myself well enough. And it's either that, or they just wanted to betray me. And the curiosity killed me, because it's not fair to be curious, to be suspicious of your friends. It's terrible. I felt terrible thinking it, and I had to get it out. As regards their temporal meaning, the characteristics of falling which we have pointed out, temptations. And the point is that I don't even know still, because they wanted to torment me with that doubt. Unconsciously, they wanted to torment me with it, because they know that that's the first time they've ever done such a thing. Ever. Like they've been waiting to tell me to shut up for a long time. It almost felt like it was quite something. It was just like, don't do the I'm a badly behaved child thing again. I didn't tolerate it in the weave when I got my shit together finally. Why would I tolerate it anywhere else? I don't tolerate it when my boss or my father talks to me like that. Ew, right? As regards their temporal meaning, the characteristics of falling, which we have pointed out, temptation, tranquilization, alienation, self-entanglement, mean that the making present, which leaps away, has an ecstatical tendency, such that it seeks to temporalize itself out of itself. When Dasein entangles itself, this has an ecstatical meaning. Of course, when one speaks of the rapture with which one's existence is carried away in making present, this does not signify that Dasein detaches itself from itself and its I. Even when it makes present in the most extreme manner, it remains temporal. That is awaiting and forgetful. In making present, moreover, Dasein still understands itself, though it has been alienated from it, its own most potentiality for being, which is based primarily on the authentic future and on authentically having been. but insofar as making present is always offering something new. It does not let Dasein come back to itself and is constantly tranquilizing it anew. This tranquilization, however, strengthens in turn the tendency towards leaping away. Curiosity is activated, not by the endless immensity of what we have not yet seen, but rather by the falling kind of temporalizing which belongs to the present as it leaps away. Right, because I'm thinking about, in this present, how many things behind my back have now happened? Knowing that some sort of weird agreement happened that I was out of the loop of with my friends. That meant that they had a little world that I wasn't in. Right? It's just like, I mean, I know they had a world that I wasn't in, but this was a world that stood against me. That broke my heart. Okay, where were we? Something new. It's shoot. I looked away for 3 seconds while I made that point. Pointed out curiosity itself as regards to temporal meaning. Characters are falling, right? Self of itself, and in a way, even I, right? Forget what making present or over dust. I still understand itself. It's been alienated from its almost right, which is based primarily on authentic future. I'm sorry. The sign coming back to itself, constantly tranquilizing it anew. Yeah, that's right. Tranquilizing, however, strengthens in turn the tendency towards leaping away. Curiosity is activated not by the endless immensity of what we have not yet seen, but rather by the falling kind of temporalizing which belongs to the present as it leaps away. Let me do leap away. Nicht die Endlus und Überseheberkeit, diesen Hus noch Sicht nicht gesehen ist, bewirkt die Lüge, sondern die Wehfällend sieht igungsert der inspringenden Gegenwart. This sentence is grammatically ambiguous. Thanks. Even if one has seen everything, this is precisely when curiosity fabricates something new. Right. So I'm in that falling state, and the imagination it has to bring forth, and I promise you that's coming from your unconscious. I had, because in my exploration of it, I said to myself, ugh, my unconscious, you are going to make me paranoid and you're going to drive me crazy. I am never going to doubt this man. Shut up. You're just Loki lying to me. And then Loki said, yeah, you're right. And you're also wrong at the same time. So this lesson of Loki is, I would say that this is a good lesson. I would say that this is not the corrupted Loki. I would say that this is just the simple, cruel Loki who is just doing his job because I needed to be hit upside the blind spot. All right. As a mode of temporalizing, the leaping away of the present is grounded in the essence of temporality, which is finite. Having been thrown into being towards death, Dasein flees proximally and for the most part in the face of this thrownness, which has been more or less explicitly revealed. The present leaps away from its authentic future and from its authentic having been, so that it lets Dasein come to its authentic existence only by taking a detour through that present. The leaping away of the present, that is the falling into lostness, has its source in the primordial authentic temporality itself, which makes possible thrown being towards death. Interesting how much the being towards death in this section has popped up, and in this chapter. under these particulars of a subject matter. Der Ursprung des Instringens, der Gegenwart, das hieß des Verfallens in die Verlorenheit, ist die ursprünglich Igelicht, Zeitlichkeit, selbst die das Geworfensein, Sumton, ergoglicht. Our conventions for translating Ursprung as source, Ursprunglicht as primordial, and Entspringen as leap away conceal Heidegger's exploitation of the root spring in this passage. While Dasein can indeed be brought authentically face to face with its thrownness so as to understand itself in the thrownness authentically, nevertheless, this thrownness remains closed off from Dasein as regards the ontical whence and how of it. But the fact that it is thus closed off is by no means just a kind of ignorance factually subsisting. It is constitutive for Dasein's facticity. It is also determinative for the ecstatical character of the way existence has been abandoned to its own null basis. Proximally, the throw of Dasein's being thrown into the world is one that does not authentically get caught. The movement which such a throw implies does not come to a stop because Dasein now is there. Dasein gets dragged along in thrownness. That is to say, as something which has been thrown into the world, it loses itself in the world in its factical submission to that with which it is to concern itself. The present, which makes up the existential meaning of getting taken along, never arrives at any other ecstatical horizon of its own accord, unless it gets brought back from its lostness by a resolution. How many times have I literally been using the word resolve? Sometimes, a couple points. Different words, I've got a little bit of a thesaurus thing that I try to do. A poet needs to have a thesaurus in their heart somewhere. Anywho, so that both the current situation and therewith the primordial limit situation of being towards death will be disclosed as a moment of vision, which has been held onto. Okay, let's see. We made it to section D. We're going to take one more break. I am going to skip ahead because it's going to be the last song. So I'm skipping a few songs, and I'm going to do one. Whoops! I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to do one more thing. Hold on a sec. Let me close this. Close Foxit for a minute. I'm not going to pull up anything on the screen, and I got to take a second and grab, because I remember I saw the lyrics or something somewhere. Okay, where is it? I think if I went to here, it popped up. Yeah, okay. It's a new album up. All right. It was this one, right? You're not here. Where did I see you? Okay. Death. Deceivers. I want to read the lyrics to this one because of my feelings about some of the people in question, right? Let's see here. Okay, lyrics and track list. Tell me you got it. All right, I think you got it. Purified. That's the one. All right, I don't need the music. I just want the... Say you have lyrics. Oh my god, your format looks awful. Oh, here we go. Good. Okay, got it. Okay. I'm getting this off genius.com. I dragged the weight of you in vain, fortified when your foundation caved, testified with the viper's beckoning, head of betrayal reared again, terror reigning my solace, ever pitiless, in despair is where you'll rest. 6 numbers carved into your eyes. A darkened veil covered my eyes. You threw me to the wolves, buried our past alive. A darkened veil rendered me blind. You wrought disease, vengeance will purify. Take the left-hand path as you descend in the cleansing fire. Remove the manifestation upon the pyre. From left to right and right to left, death is secured, consigned and sealed. Execute the severance and the suffering. 6 numbers carved into your eyes. A darkened veil covered my eyes. You threw me to the wolves, buried our past alive. A darkened veil rendered me blind. You wrought disease, vengeance will purify. The highest crown, a rightful fate. Regaining the power through darkened veils. Suffer equilibrium, victim of your own decision. Suffering equilibrium, victim of your own indecision. Scarred by your deception, open the wounds again. Tear out the sutures ordered in succession. This album was written this year. Eviscerated memories reshape the less defined. Absolve the absolute in abundance of lies. A darkened veil covered my eyes. You threw me to the wolves. Buried our past alive. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. just so much better. I feel fantastic. Oh, my God. Woo! I am going to see Cattle Decapitation tomorrow. Fucking A, they're a kick-ass band. I'm also going to see Brain Dead. Woo! If you are in New York City and you want to meet me, I will be at the Cattle Decapitation show. I'm pretty sure you don't want to fuck with me there. Let's hang out and have a fucking pint of mead. Hey! And you can see my old band. And we can have some laughs. Oh, my God. The fat jokes about me that we used to have back then. Oh, my God. It was such good laughs. Such good, like, dude, like. I am honorary Bronx. People don't fucking understand this about me. I'm a fucking sweetheart. So why do you bring the rage out of me? What the hell, man? People gotta emotionally fucking defend themselves. For fuck's sake. You know? Not all of us have the nerves of steel of Sethicus fucking Boza. Shout out Black Earth Productions. Right? And his work's been amazing for me. And I try to honor being a Blue Flame Healing Arts initiate. You know, he's very serious about this. He has been working against the dark occultists in some of the most real ways that you would understand if you can really listen to the level of occulted poetic prose in which he's contextualizing everything, combined with various proofs in science and numerology expressed within as you go through all of this. I believe that I am wielding the force of the Hamramer, which is the essence, the isness of lightning. It is the thunderbolt of Thunar. It is the power that runs through Mjolnir. It is the essence in which Thor is ordained to wield by the higher force. And each and every single one of us that wants to become a magus can wield this authority for yourself. You can talk to me about it. You can talk to Sethicus about it. If you charge, if you give him the right amount of money, and it's worth it, I fucking promise you, my life is a testament to its effectiveness. All right. Let's see, where are we at? Kaboomskis. Let me catch up real quick. I did unmute, right? You guys would have said something if I... Yeah, okay. Because I don't remember hitting unmute at just this moment, right? Because flow state and all. Let's see here. All right, So Zephyr says, I have unconditional love, but that doesn't mean I have to love them face to face. So if I don't like them, right, well, okay. Yes, I have unconditional love in the sense that under the assumptions that you are not a psychopath. Only standard is the anomaly, the exception, the absolute rarity of an actual psychopath, which we need to be their natural predators, but we also need to use a great deal of wise and cunning and you're talking the Kvasir, okay? The Kvasir. This is the principle in the Norse mythos that is equivalent to the principle of the Christos. The Kvasir is like the Christos. The Kvasir is the essence of all the gods combined into a kind of Ubermensch who solves everybody's problems, and there is peace under the natural order of things. Nobody, it's not a forced peace. It's literal, straight up reconciliation, and we're back to remembering who we are and where our place is in the world and how abundant it is functioning in our place in the world, and realizing how much it's what you always wanted. I wish the world would force me to be a musician. I wish it would force me. It won't. I have to will it into existence. And I have to work. And I have to figure out a bunch of shit about the industry that I don't understand, because I am not a genius at making the music work. And that also breaks my heart. So I'd like to win one of my dreams today. Can I have one of my dreams today? Please? Pleading? Thank you. So, let's see. I want to read the chat some more because I know Zephyr. We've talked a lot, so I know you care about me. Okay. Okay, yeah. All right, so an idea of how much you never know the truth until you have an opportunity to test your own projections against reality, and even then, I guess it's better than nothing, though, right? Exactly. And I said, I'm going to do this thing with James. It's going to, I wonder what the hell's going to happen. This is such a wild card move, right? And it wasn't unexpected from the party in question. So that rocked my world. It was meant, it was like a surprise, because I was trying to catalyst getting the band back together, because I'm on a mission from God. Go watch the Blues Brothers tonight or something, and ask yourself, how do you get the band back together? You never know the truth. Okay, yeah, so if you told them all that, you'd be accused of being self-absorbed. Okay, no doubt. I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about there. So novelty, wanting to know something unknown. I take people seriously unless they clear they're not serious. Correct. Yeah. That's always, there's different protocols. There's different manners in which you handle things. This is how you wield your Gulder, right? Your choice of words to handle different, modalities of people that you're dealing with, whether it's within their character or not within their character. As a principle of the law of Gebo, the way you treat somebody is the way they treat you. So I have unconditional love, but that doesn't mean I have to love them face to face. So if I don't also like them and find we can tolerate each other's presence, then I can love them from afar. Right, well, that's just, yeah, so like I was saying about the psychopath, the universal principle of love, et cetera. So, yeah. That, yeah, I got that unconditional love, but that don't mean spit, That's like saying, okay, like under the assumption that whatever circumstances, the rapist in prison, who's got the very true and correct heinous story with the victims who have the receipts and the whole 9 yards, and somehow that guy's not a psychopath, then I have unconditional love for them. But the receipts are probably going to prove psychopathy, in which case you do not have to give them unconditional love. Do not give unconditional love to the psychopath. When you know they're a psychopath, let it go. You gotta. It's okay. It's okay at that point. They confess they're void of soul. It's this kind of a thing. It takes a crazy level of entrapment, and it usually only happens with psychopaths that fail in life. We have to fear the psychopaths that succeed in life because of the fairness of the game and the sadness of the actuality of their exploitation of it. Loki is a spirit that, that you are meant to understand the psychopath by. Okay? You can, by observing Loki carefully, to being better at avoiding the hooks and traps and snares and the lies and the false guises, right? Balder could not be saved because his own mother didn't recognize him. Okay? Understand these archetypes. I think you have made choices that you needed to for your best outcome, and the lesson in seeing the truth is yours, and you have now learned it. The larger lesson belongs to them. Right, exactly. I'm done. I ranted out 20 million speculations because I'm letting them know I now see them differently. I see them differently now. And I want them to tell me, am I wrong? Correct. My Dasein has shifted entirely. I am off my fucking rocker and now finding new direction. They may never learn it. They may never. You're right. You're right. Who needs it? Your ego needs a new job. Genius, I love poetry. I have freckles on both my inner arms, which is connected, which looks like lightning bolts. Oh, that's killer. You get your eyes closed, and then, yeah, it was excellent. Re-show with James. Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, hold on a second. Let me take a sip, and then we're going to actually get back to the subject at hand. The temporality of discourse. When the there has been completely disclosed, its disclosedness is constituted by understanding state of mind and falling, and this disclosedness becomes articulated by discourse. Thus, discourse does not temporalize itself primarily in any definite ecstasis. Factically, however, discourse expresses itself for the most part in language and speaks proximally in the way of addressing itself to the environment by talking about things concernfully. Because of this, making present has, of course, a privileged constitutive function. Tenses, like the other temporal phenomena of language, aspects, and temporal stages, Zeitstufen, do not spring from the fact that discourse expresses itself. Also about temporal processes. Process encountered in time, nor does their basis lie in the fact that speaking runs its course in a physical time. Discourse in itself is temporal, since all talking about, of, or to is grounded in the ecstatical unity. Oh, there she is. Okay. Ecstatical unity, I just had it, of temporality aspects have their roots in the primordial temporality of concern, whether or not this concern relates itself to that which is within time. Concern is so interesting in the function of Dasein, right? So, short story. I was hanging out with one of my buddies, and we were having, and we're nerds, right? So, like, he's hardcore on Magic the Gathering, and I'm I'm old school, so I've had some old decks, and because it's fun playing with him, I pick up a little bit on the hobby again. So we go to the gaming store. To, because we hadn't played with other people in a long-ass time. We've just been playing as, it's always our days. He's got 50 million decks, and I've got, like, 8 or something like that. I've got I've got some pretty goddamn good decks though. And so we went out to play with strangers and other people, looking around and so you got your filter of unconditional love because you're getting, you're looking at some people that are, they all look in extremely rough shape, and and many of them are memeably cringy, and I don't really like any of them. There was one table of some very young people, maybe late teens, early 20s, that they didn't look like they were much of anything for me. There was one really sweet-looking girl over there that I didn't think she was very pretty or anything like that, but there was something that it was just like, she seems like a kind person or something like that. Or I want to go play over at this table. So I get over there and I had I had an inspection of just who she was, seeing her in front of me, and I couldn't get over all the scars. She had all these markings, and she's wearing like with the midriff up or whatever, but it's like she looks like she was like she was like recovering from an accident or something, right? It's very like, noticeable. And so I decided to be impolite and ask her if she was okay. It was impolite of me to ask her if she was okay, and her friends kind of all looked at me as like, "Hey man, you gotta do that?" I was just like, "Oh, sorry man, it's just a guy of concern," right? And everything was cool. It all smoothed over. I think that they believed me, right? Because it was immediate redaction. It's just like, like the lion you've been looking at, exact fucking opposite. As a curiosity is arising, as I am, tapping it, like I'm deliberately, like my DOS, like I got a penetrating aura. It's in my human design chart. Okay. So, my penetrating aura helped me wield my Hamramer, and thus the projection of my energy in the broadcast. So yeah, I was a sense of the world coming into her Dasein, and then her enclave of Dasein, came and protected her, right? Because, like, yeah, obviously, I was just like, these good men, they're protecting her, right? Like, that's how I felt about it. Nothing else is my fucking business. Really isn't. But it was just kind of a way of me saying, hey, I'm Steve. I want to let you know I'm a compassionate person. That's ultimately what I was trying, that I really wanted to say looking at her like that. Because she had this little smile on her face, and it's just like there's a little bit of suffering going on in there. And it looks like she got some people that really want to make her happy. So she got good things going on. Apparently she's a paramedic. So, I only hope that maybe that little thing stirred a beautiful conversation with them and made a difference in her life. Because I can imagine I put a ripple in the wave that way. Who knows? Let it go. Maybe I'll end up in the hospital one day and she'll say, thank you for caring. And she does me some solid in there. The problem of their existential temporal structure cannot even be formulated. With the help of the ordinary traditional conception of time to which the science of language needs must have recourse. But because in any discourse one is talking about entities, even if not primarily and predominantly in the sense of theoretical assertion, the analysis of the temporal constitution of discourse and the explication of the temporal characteristics of language patterns can be tackled only if the problem of how being and truth are connected in principle is broached in the light of the problematic of temporality. We can then define even the ontological meaning of the is, which is superficial theory of propositions and judgments has deformed to a mere copula, only in terms of the temporality of discourse, that is, of Dasein in general, can we clarify how signification arises and make the possibility of concept formation ontologically intelligible. Understanding is grounded primarily in the future, whether in anticipation or in awaiting. States of mind temporalize themselves primarily in having been, whether in repetition or in having forgotten. Falling has its temporal roots primarily in the present, whether in making present or in the moment of vision. All the same, understanding is in every case a present which is in the process of having been. All the same, one's state of mind temporalizes itself as a future which is making present. And all the same, the present leaps away from a future that is in the process of having been, or else it is held on to by such a future. God, that timing of this fucking chapter. Thus we can see that in every ecstasis, temporality temporalizes itself as a whole. And this means that in the ecstatical unity with which temporality has fully temporalized itself currently is grounded the totality of the structural whole of existence, facticity and falling. That is the unity of the care structure. Temporalizing does not signify that ecstasies come in a succession. The future is not later than having been, and having been is not earlier than the present. Temporality temporalizes itself as a future, which makes present in the process of having been. Both the disclosedness of the there and the Dasein basic existential possibilities, authenticity and inauthenticity, are founded upon temporality, but disclosedness always pertains with equal primordiality to the entirety of being in the world, to being in, as well as to the world. So if we orient ourselves by the temporal constitution of disclosedness, the ontological condition for the possibility that there can be entities which exist as being in the world must be something that may also be exhibited. I'm glad there weren't a lot of annotations or German to deal with in... Oh, that was the end of it. To deal with in there, just because I liked just getting right to the end of it. Just like that. Woo! Let me read that one more time, because it's like the last thing in this whole glorious chapter that is telling me, good job, kid. Both the disclosedness of the there and Dasein's basic existential possibilities, authenticity and inauthenticity, are founded upon temporality, but disclosedness always pertains with equal primordiality to the entirety of being in the world, to being in as well as to the world. So if we orient ourselves by the temporal constitution of disclosedness, the ontological condition for the possibility that there can be entities which exist as being in the world must be something that may also be exhibited, which is what it's getting back to seeing what's actually real. Nice way to land the plane, Heidegger. Woo! I'm on fire. Love it. Fucking love it. Zerilath calling out the elephant. Ooh, we should chat human design sometime. I'm a 1-3 projector. Splenic authority. I'm curious. All right. Acting on curiosity, like being the first person to initiate dancing when everyone else is standing on the sidelines, fearing judgment. Yes, Archaic's theory on the simulation and mastering the simulation is breaking pattern, breaking program. He is absolutely correct in that assessment. Every wizard fucking knows this. Man, the irony of what some people audaciously say. Oh my God, just thinking about the people that were for or against based on their filter of how their Dasein projects out as to what they see in me, what they see in Jason Brashear, what they see in James True. It is fascinating. It is exceedingly interesting. I'm not even mad at it anymore. Because my wolves are producing some excellent results. Get in, Frecky, feed well tonight. Iron is ironic, and iron sharpens iron, just as one man sharpens another. Huzzah. All right. I'm going to use the I want to use the intermission screen to play us out or whatever. I want to grab one more song. I want to play one more song. In fact, let me double check here. Do I still have that page open? I do. Yes. Let me grab. Actually, let me grab the other one. Ooh, yeah, I'm going to go to YouTube for this one. Okay, there was another song that dropped after, like, my first wave. Like this album, like, I think maybe even dropped the same day as this single dropped. So let me see if I got the lyrics for it. Because I'll read that, too. I don't even know if I read the lyrics, but I think the title was where it's at, and I maybe heard something. Dark... No, not... Oh, come on. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Is it on Dark Lyrics yet? By the way, guys, if you ever want to find most metal albums' lyrics in an archive, darklyrics.com is my favorite website to look up my metal band's shit. Okay, let's see. No. Okay, Dark Lyrics doesn't have this new jam yet. Let me hop on the tube real quick, grab this particular song. Should be somewhere up top. Oh, yeah. It's called Unforgivable. So I couldn't believe it just happened to be titled that. Oh, good, the lyrics are here. The lyrics are on the YouTube page. Beautiful. Let's hear it. Let me take a sip. I need a sip. Almost there, man. Beyond all sense is this. The march goes ever on. Inside what's left behind, the wasted years of scorn. No charge to save us now. The lingering will fall. The march goes ever on. We must be gone. By the coming of the dawn, there will be no one left to tell our story. Unforgivable betrayal in the hour of our need. No quarter for this treachery, no mercy for the lost. The silent ways of those who scour the distant shore. To further widen the divide, we must be gone. By the coming of the dawn, there will be no one left to tell our story. Unforgivable betrayal in the hour of our need. No quarter for this treachery, no mercy for the lost. Not a single purpose given, no leniency, not a single reason stated, no mercy shown. We will be gone before the daylight comes. There will be no one left to tell our story. Unforgivable betrayal in the hour of our need. No quarter for this treachery. Unforgivable betrayal in the hour of our need. No quarter for this treachery. No mercy for the lost. All right, that was pretty good. Let's do it. Oh, wait, there's an ad. Hold on. I can skip this in 3 seconds. Ooh. All right. You're going to like this. You're going to like it. You're going to like it. Alright, basically that's it. I'm gonna say good night, Zephyr and Nicholas. Thank you for keeping me company through this particular evening. You've added some great shit to the show, and man, oh man, yeah. Go check out the band Brain Dead. Check out the band Brain Dead. And sometimes you're going to have to find Steve Travesty. Zerilath came much, much later. Find Steve Travesty in Brain Dead. And go look at the old me. The me that was in the Bronx every fucking week. And was far less impressive of a man than I am now. And ask yourself, what the fuck do you think you've been fucking with? Alright, I'll catch you guys later.